When we think of the Second World War, our minds instantly picture the terrifying rumble of massive steel tanks shaking the earth. But what about the nimble, deadly predators that scouted ahead of the front line, outmaneuvering the enemy before they even knew what hit them? Today, we are bringing you every armored car used in World War II, explained. Pulling back the curtain on the unsung, wheeled beasts that shaped modern warfare. This is your definitive deep dive breakdown of the fastest, most lethal reconnaissance vehicles of the Second World War, from the scorching sands of the Sahara to the frozen, blood-soaked streets of Stalingrad. These machines dictated the flow of battle. If you love military history and want to know how these wheeled warriors outsmarted heavy armor, you need to watch this video right to the very end. Make sure to hit that subscribe button right now and drop a comment below letting us know which of these armored cars is your absolute favorite. Let us get into it. Number 1, the M8 Greyhound, United States. Name: the M8 light armored car, universally immortalized as the Greyhound. Purpose: designed for high-speed reconnaissance, forward cavalry screening, and aggressively probing enemy lines to locate anti-tank positions. Why it is deadly? Do not let its lightweight profile deceive you. The Greyhound was an absolute menace. It wielded a 37mm M6 main gun, a 30 caliber coaxial machine gun, and a devastating 50 caliber Browning M2 anti-aircraft gun mounted on the turret ring. Powered by a Hercules JXD inline-6 engine, the Greyhound could reach a blistering top speed of 55 miles per hour on paved roads. Its speed was its true armor. If an enemy tank spotted an M8, the Greyhound was usually miles away before the turret could even traverse to aim at it. Real-world use. The M8 was the ultimate eyes and ears of the American and British forces, serving extensively in the dense bocage of Normandy, the frozen forests of the Ardennes, and the steaming jungles of the Pacific. Its most legendary, mind-blowing moment occurred during the Battle of St. Vith. In 1944, a single American M8 Greyhound found itself face-to-face with a terrifying German Tiger heavy tank. Knowing its 37mm gun could not scratch the Tiger's front armor, the Greyhound commander ordered the driver to accelerate. The tiny armored car sped completely around the massive Tiger, dodging its rotating gun, and fired 3 rounds at point blank, ranged directly into the Tiger's thin rear engine armor, causing the behemoth to erupt in flames. It was the ultimate David and Goliath story of the war. Number 2, CDKFZ 234-2 Puma, Germany. Name: Sonderkraftfahrzeug 234/2, feared across the battlefield as the Puma. Purpose: heavy combat reconnaissance, deep penetration raids, and aggressive anti-tank skirmishing ahead of the main panzer divisions. Why it is deadly? The Puma is widely considered the absolute pinnacle of wheeled armored vehicle design in the entire Second World War. It featured an astonishing 8-wheel independent suspension system, giving it unparalleled cross-country mobility. But its true deadliness lay in its armament. It featured a fully enclosed, heavily armored turret packing a lethal 50mm Kuvikunadili cannon. This was the exact same high-velocity gun used on the early Panzer III medium tanks. This meant the Puma could effortlessly punch a hole right through Allied light tanks, armored personnel carriers, and even medium tanks like the Sherman if it struck the side armor. Real-world use. The Puma was a masterpiece of German engineering, utilized late in the war on both the eastern and western fronts. It was specifically designed with a Tatra V12 diesel engine to operate in the extreme heat of North Africa, though it saw most of its combat in Europe. What made the Puma truly mind-blowing in real-world combat was its dual-drive system. It had 2 separate driver seats and 2 steering wheels, one facing forward and one facing directly backward. If a Puma crew drove into a deadly ambush, they did not have to waste precious time turning around. The rear driver simply took the controls, and the Puma could reverse out of the danger zone at its maximum top speed of 55 miles per hour, firing its main gun all the while. Number 3, Daimler Armored Car, Great Britain. Name the Daimler armored car. Purpose: long-range desert patrol, specialized forward reconnaissance, and heavy infantry support for British armored divisions. Why it is deadly. The British needed a vehicle that could survive the brutal, vehicle-destroying conditions of the desert, and the Daimler was the perfect weapon. It utilized the turret directly taken from the Tetrarch light tank, armed with a highly accurate 2-pounder anti-tank gun and a Besa machine gun. What made the Daimler incredibly deadly was the addition of the Little John adapter. This was a mind-blowing piece of engineering. Attached to the barrel of the 2-pounder gun, it used squeeze-bore technology, compressing the artillery shell as it exited the barrel, drastically increasing its velocity, and allowing this small armored car to penetrate the armor of heavy German panzers. Real-world use, the Daimler earned its legendary, terrifying status in the sprawling, unforgiving deserts of North Africa. British forces and elite units used it to endlessly harass Italian and German supply lines. With its rugged four-wheel drive and independent suspension, it could conquer jagged rocks and deep sand that would leave regular trucks stranded. The Daimler would strike isolated enemy outposts in brutal hit-and-run attacks, gather vital intelligence, and disappear into the shifting sands of the Sahara before the Axis forces could launch a counterattack. Number 4, BA-10, Soviet Union. Name the Bronavtomobil 10, simply known as the BA-10. Purpose: early war heavy infantry support, border skirmishing, and dedicated anti-tank duty for the Red Army. Why it is deadly. Unlike the sleek, low-profile designs of the Western Allies, the Soviet BA-10 looked like a brutally modified commercial transport truck, but it hit like an absolute sledgehammer. It was armed with a massive 45mm 20K tank gun. In the 1930s and the early years of the war, this was a mind-blowingly massive weapon for a wheeled vehicle. It could easily destroy any German or Japanese light armor it encountered. Furthermore, the crew could actually wrap auxiliary tracks around the dual rear wheels, temporarily transforming the BA-10 into a half-track to cross treacherous, muddy terrain. Real-world use. The BA-10 was the undisputed king of the battlefield. During the 1939 border conflicts with Japan at Khalkhin Gol, where its heavy gun decimated Japanese light armor, it also saw massive action in the brutal, freezing conditions of the Winter War against Finland. However, when Germany invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, the BA-10 met its match. Its tall profile made it an easy target, and its standard truck chassis struggled to survive the infamous Russian Rasputitsa, the season of deep, impassable mud. By 1942, most had been destroyed or captured by the German army, who actually repurposed them to fight against Soviet partisans. Number 5, Autoblindo AB-41, Italy. Name the Autoblindo 41 or AB-41. Purpose: specialized desert warfare, colonial policing, and dedicated deep-range reconnaissance. Why it is deadly. The Italians crafted a machine that was elegant, complex and brutally effective against soft targets. The AB-41 was armed with a rapid-firing 2mm Breda anti-aircraft autocannon alongside an 8mm machine gun mounted in the rear hull. While it was never meant to go toe-to-toe with heavy tanks, this 20mm autocannon was a meat grinder. It would absolutely shred enemy infantry lines, unarmored transport trucks, and light scout cars in a matter of seconds, unleashing a hail of high-explosive fury. Real-world use. This was the definitive workhorse of the Italian army in North Africa and the Balkans. Like the German Puma, the AB-41 featured dual driving positions for lightning-fast escapes. But its most mind-blowing feature was its adaptability. The AB-41 was specifically designed with a specialized conversion kit that allowed the crew to swap its rubber tires for heavy steel railway wheels. This allowed the Italians to drive this heavily armored car directly onto train tracks, turning it into a high-speed, heavily armored railway patrol vehicle that protected vital supply trains from partisan ambushes. Number 6, Stechefs 22, Germany. Name the Leichter Panzerspähwagen. commonly known by its military designation, the WW2. Purpose: fast-paced light reconnaissance, flanking operations, and screening the flanks of advancing panzer divisions during the Blitzkrieg. Why it is deadly? This vehicle is the visual definition of the early war German Blitzkrieg. It was fast, highly maneuverable, and armed with a rapid-fire 20mm KWK-30 autocannon. The unique diamond-shaped, highly sloped hull armor easily deflected small arms fire. The most recognizable and brilliantly deadly feature was its turret. It had an open top to allow the commander to spot enemy aircraft and hidden anti-tank guns, but it was covered by a heavy hinged wire mesh screen. This allowed perfect visibility while causing enemy grenades thrown from above to bounce harmlessly off the roof. Real-world use. The WW2 was the iconic German scout car that spearheaded the invasions of Poland, France, and the Low Countries. It dominated the paved roads of Western Europe, using its speed to relay enemy troop movements back to the mighty panzer tanks trailing behind. However, when the German war machine turned its eyes to the Soviet Union, the WW2 faced a harsh reality check. Its four-wheel drive system simply could not handle the horrific axle-deep mud and deep snow of the Eastern Front. Number 7. BA-64, Soviet Union. Name: the Brauner Automobil 64, or BA-64. Purpose: light liaison, frontline scouting, and brutal urban combat operations. Why it is deadly? The Soviet Union realized their massive armored cars were dying too quickly. They needed something small, cheap, and stealthy. Enter the BA-64. Built on the chassis of a four-wheel drive Soviet Jeep, it did not rely on massive cannons. Instead, its deadliness came from its incredibly small size and stealth. Armed with a single 7.62mm DT machine gun, its armor was heavily sloped, directly copied from captured German. As WW2 says, the weapon mount allowed the machine gun to be elevated to extreme, near vertical angles, making it a terrifying weapon against low-flying aircraft and snipers. Real-world use. Introduced in the dark days of 1942, the BA-64 became an instant legend during the apocalyptic urban warfare of the Battle of Stalingrad. Because the machine gun could aim almost straight up, Soviet crews used the BA-64 to drive through the shattered, rubble-filled streets of the city, firing upward into the second and third stories of ruined buildings to annihilate hidden German sniper nests and machine gun emplacements. It was a gritty, highly effective street brawler that completely changed how the Soviets handled urban scouting. Number 8. Humber Armored Car, Great Britain. Name: the Humber Armored Car. Purpose: command and control, frontline reconnaissance and infantry fire support. Why it is deadly? Produced in massive numbers, the Humber was the rugged, reliable backbone of British armored reconnaissance. The Mark III and Mark IV versions were incredibly deadly, equipped with a heavy 15mm Baser machine gun and later upgraded to the American 37mm cannon. It featured thick frontal armor for a scout car and an incredibly reliable Roots engine that rarely broke down in the field, meaning the Humber could relentlessly pursue retreating enemy forces without resting. Real-world use. The Humber served in every major theater of the war where British forces fought. From the scorching dunes of El Alamein to the muddy, hedgerow-lined roads of Normandy, the Humber was there. It was famously used by the Phantom, Reconnaissance regiments, elite British units tasked with driving deep into hostile territory to establish secret radio communications and report real-time enemy movements directly back to Allied High Command. From the terrifying, rapid-firing Italian auto-blindos to the heavily armored German Pumas outrunning heavy tanks and the legendary American Greyhounds, pulling off impossible David and Goliath victories, armored cars were the absolute lifeblood of battlefield intelligence. They were the unsung heroes of the Second World War. They struck fast, hit incredibly hard, and faded away into the dust and smoke before the heavy artillery even arrived. If you learned something new today and your mind was blown by this deep dive into Every armored car used in World War II explained. Do not leave this page without hitting that subscribe button. We have massive, documentary quality military history videos coming your way very soon. Leave a comment down below telling us which of these incredible armored cars is your favorite, and we will see you in the next video.